We are live from Frederick, Maryland, and I got to tell you, we got a great guest tonight. Happened to be a guy I met on an airplane coming back from Barrett Jackson. So we got a great story. He's got a lot of stories, and so anyway, let's welcome Jeff Stutts. Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Good, Sam. Good evening. Thank you for having me.
We wouldn't miss it for the world from where you've been. Everybody, this is someone I actually met on the airplane coming back from Barrett Jackson, and quite interesting because I think we were halfway back to Charlotte before we realized we had anything in common. And so, anyway, as we were talking back and forth, and we each had to use the head, so we was trying to get this plane was full. There couldn't have held another person on there. But anyway, so by the time we shuffled around, then we sort of somehow discovered we had something in common. That was cars, and that the whole front of pretty much the whole front of the first class people, we were right behind the first class. So anyway, so the first class people were some of Hendrick's people, and I don't know, some friends of Jeff's. And so anyway, we got to talking, and one thing led to another, and we discovered that he started out drag racing and wound up with some NASCAR stuff, and some guy named Junior Johnson, whatever he is, you know. So anyway, it was an interesting flight on the rest of the way. So anyway, Jeff, you started out with some cars, but you know, it's crazy how these things evolve. But you started out with some drag racers, you know, some dirty old drag racers, you know.
Yeah, I was still in high school, and the local Plymouth dealer's mechanic had he actually had a 55 Chevrolet with a 348 in it. And I started out helping him at a little place called Mooresville Drag Strip.
Oh, boy.
And did that through my high school years. Would go out there. I was out there every Saturday anyway, and I just tried to figure out how to get on the track, you know, down where the action was. So I started helping him.
Wow.
He graduated up and bought him a Camaro, had a big block in the Camaro, and raced it. And we had a big time. You know, we'd have some Ronnie Sox would show up sometimes, and those, you know, those guys on big race weekend.
Oh, you were in the heart of them. Good. That was their territory.
Yep, and I was sort of hooked on drag racing. My father lived in Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Right.
And I was down there with him one summer, and I went to the Coca-Cola Cavalcade of Funny Cars. Do you remember that?
Oh my God, yeah.
Jeez. And all that's emblazoned in my mind, there was an orange Roadrunner with a black top, and they were all racing, and it was a big deal.
That's the way it is. Oh Lord. Well, you know, it was a form of real entertainment back then because you know, entertainment was slim. But so getting into drag racing, there was a lot of people that could do it, and so therefore that took on a form of all its own. But from there, you wound up in some dirt. So
local guy. His name was Larry Wayne Williams, and he was a mechanic for the town of Mooresville, and everybody knew him. You know, we used to hang around uptown together.
Right.
And I started going to the old Concord Speedway and the Metrolina Speedway, helping him. And, you know, at Concord and Metrolina, when I started helping him, it was in the very early 70s. So it was nothing for Earnhardt, you know, to be there. And he was just Dale. And we raced against him, Freddie Smith, a lot of other very notable dirt drivers back in the day. And then later on in the 70s, Darrell would show up every once in a while with a little fancy car.
Is that right?
Yeah. Everybody wanted to lean on him and get his paint knocked off.
I bet. That's probably funny.
But Larry Wayne, the interesting fact about Larry Wayne, he raced, and so when Dale Jr. and Kelly were coming along, they had a late model program, and Earnhardt got Larry Wayne to build and set up their cars.
Is that right?
Yeah, and Larry Wayne would go to the short tracks with them when Dale couldn't go, and basically, showed them the ropes and how to drive. And Kelly was a pretty tough driver,
Right.
especially being a girl, but she could get it done, and she was real protective of her brother.
Yeah, I bet. That's what I heard. So you got to know them a little bit?
Yeah. Earnhardt he moved to Mooresville, and that's where I was born and raised, in Mooresville. They call it Race City now, but
yeah,
it used to, Earnhardt lived out there on the lake, so I knew him. I was in law enforcement, and I knew where all the race car drivers lived as they were moving in the 70s and early 80s, and I would go by their houses and check on them and stuff. But
right.
It was a big deal, but I didn't know it at the time.
Right.
Just regular racers.
Regular racers, Yeah, you don't. It's amazing how everything evolves, especially that group, So
I saw Mooresville grow from a town of about 2,500 to there's about 60 or 70,000 people there now.
Yeah. Oh man,
wow. It is crazy.
It's the race car world there.
Yeah.
I mean, everywhere there. It's amazing. So
we were just a regular small town. Everybody had hot rods dragging Main Street. I've drove Main Street, Mooresville, 1,000,000 miles, I guess.
There you go. Well, we all had our places that, we had to make the circle, drive around and make the loop. Yeah. That was what you did in that day,
Yeah, and we knew when all the big stuff was going on. We knew the dates at the World 600 was and things like that. So we didn't have the cash to go to the race. We would sit at the corner of Main Street and Statesville Avenue and wait for Junior Johnson and his crew and another group. They would come through on their way back to the mountains, and we'd see them. Sometimes they'd stop. Sometimes they'd throw us a hat.
So, right.
Just crazy.
You felt big time then,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. Well, you eventually somehow got to work with Junior Johnson. I bet that was an amazing thing.
It was that. It was like when I got a job with him, to me, that was like I was a football player in high school, so that was just like me walking up to the Green Bay Packers and walking on and getting a job.
Right.
I started going to juniors, and I got to know his truck driver when I was in law enforcement and I had days off. I'd go with his truck driver and wash wheels and do things and watch what these guys were doing, and got to know Junior.
Yeah.
And I was up there on one of my days off working. I had recently been shot at.
Oh,
and after, I've been in law enforcement 8 or 9 years, and I thought, I'm not making that much money, and it's not worth getting shot.
Right, exactly.
So I went to talk to Junior and told him, I said, I know about cars. I don't know about race cars, but I'd like to have a job. And he said, well, that was in early '83 when we had the Pepsi Challenger car. Oh. He said, well, I got this Bonnett boy from Alabama coming next year, and we're going to have 2 cars. He said, you come to work up here full time in October when we start building cars for him.
There you go.
So I said, okay, that's good with me. Well, we go to Daytona, and in that Pepsi car, and Darrell, it's a wonder it didn't hurt him worse than it did, but he destroyed that car. He went to Richmond the next week, burnt the gear out of that car, went to Rockingham the next week and wrecked that car, and didn't know he was at either race.
Is that
he
right?
Really didn't. So they're sitting there, 2 wrecked cars. They're trying to build new Talladega cars, this and that. So Junior said, we're behind and we need people. Said, you can come to work now. So I went to work for him in the early part of '83.
Gotcha. Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Bet you couldn't be happier with that.
Well, it was a big deal. Mooresville was still little,
Yeah.
and racing hadn't landed in Mooresville yet. There were no shops in Mooresville. Actually, Junior shop was the closest shop to Mooresville at that time, and I was living in Statesville, which was even closer to him.
Yeah.
So I went to work for him. I'm not the first person from Mooresville that was connected with NASCAR, but I think I was the first guy from Mooresville that got a job in Winston Cup racing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Winston, and not long after, my best friend Bill Engel, he owned an electrical business. We were having electrical problems with Darrell's car at Daytona.
Yeah.
It kept blowing those. You had those little Corvette transistors in it. Kept
Oh
blowing.
yeah. Yeah.
So I called Billy on the phone and told him what was going on. That was back before cell phones. I had to go to the garage office and make all this call. Told him what was going on, and he said, "Well, you need to do this." I said, "Well, wait a minute. I'm writing this, so I'm writing everything down." So I go to Junior and I hand him this piece of paper. I said, "Here, the best electrical guy in North Carolina told me to tell you to do this. Who is this boy?" I said, he's my best friend. He owns an electrical business. I said, at least try it. So they tried it, and it worked. And after the race, Junior come up to me, and he said, "I want to talk to this boy. I want him to come to work for me." So
is that right?
Yeah, eventually Billy sold his business and came to work for Junior.
Wow.
And Billy had a long career in NASCAR. He was Ricky Rudd's crew chief, Michael Waltrip's crew chief. Yeah, he did very well for himself. He drove a few races in the Busch Series.
Jeez.
But we were the first two from Mooresville to get in there. But we did. I had another guy, a friend of mine's dad. His name was Burrhead Nance. Burrhead drove he qualified and was in the 63 or 64 World 600.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he was a good driver, but he got his driving talent like most of them. Then North Carolina, he was a bootlegger. He could drive. So Mooresville's always been connected in one way or another with
to that type of thing. And of course, you being in law enforcement, that probably worked out well.
Oh yeah, well, when I got out of high school, I had a lot of people ask me, "How'd you get on the police force?" I said, "Well, to catch a crook, you got to be a crook." So, but it was good. I had my law enforcement career was good, but I couldn't have got to where I'm at today. If I'd have stayed in law enforcement. My hat's off to those people that do it and make a career out of it. There's something special
in this day and age.
Yes,
crazy. Yeah. So you go to work for Junior, and Junior at that time was not driving, obviously.
No.
So that was past his career.
This was 83. This has been a while since he drove.
Yeah. I remember my dad took me to Darlington, just a little kid at that time. And Junior he had the first mystery engine, they called it. Chevy mystery engine. And he led, every lap, and the car exploded on the last lap. Yeah, I'll never forget that. I said, "Boy, if that ain't some luck." But geez. So anyway, you go to work for him, and I guess he was happy. And what all did you do?
Well, it was a big deal. Somebody from Mooresville going to work up there. So the small newspaper comes up to do a story about me trading law enforcement for working at Junior Johnson. And they took a big picture and put it in the paper. And it was a picture of me and Junior leaning over a red belly Ford tractor trying to get it wired up. So I worked on tractors with Junior. I dug potatoes, helped him kill hogs, whatever came up, we would do. And, I was used to that old country stuff, so it was fun.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, God.
I had always had these thoughts in my head when I had cars, when I was building cars. I said, that'd be neat if I could do this or that, but I really didn't know what kind of tool to do it with.
Right, right.
When I got up to juniors and saw the fab shop with the rollers and the brakes and the shears, I knew I had found the right place.
Yeah. There
So,
you go.
I tried, the guys up there, they tried to help me learn how to fabricate and do things, but I just do just whatever, they needed done. Guy named Mike Hill, it was Jeff Hammond, Doug Richard, and Mike Hill, and they were like crew chiefs over the deal.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah, Mike he did a lot of suspensions. He taught me a lot of the suspension and setup stuff.
Geometry, yeah.
Yeah, but it was a neat experience.
I bet. I seen Jeff Hammond was on a live Zoom thing today. I always enjoy listening to him too.
Yeah. See, everybody thinks that Jeff just like Pooh showed up at juniors, but he didn't. He helped a guy named Walter Ballard back in the 70s.
Right.
And sort of cut his teeth on that. Walter lived in Dorada, which is right near the old Metrolina Speedway, and Jeff lived near there, and that's how he got involved in it. And then he got a job with Junior.
I bet you probably got some stories about Junior and some of them. How were these cars put together?
Well, people say that because of Smokey Unique that the NASCAR rule book was half as thick as it was. Well, the other half belonged to Junior.
Right.
And he was good. And when I got there, they got all this flashy paint on the outside, but we painted all the interiors and underneath of those cars black.
Yeah.
And I always after a while I caught on. I know why they painted them black. But it wasn't just at juniors, and it wasn't cheating. You take that rule book, and if it didn't say anything, you can't do this.
Right.
He was always thinking. And he would think about things and how you do this and that. And then he'd get other people that come to work in there, and they'd bounce ideas off each other. And they built some pretty formidable cars. And I have to say, we built some that were like we thought was going to be fast as an arrow, and it was fast as a brick.
That's what happens sometimes.
Yeah.
God. Oh, man. Were any of them shorter or longer than they're supposed to be? Or...
Yeah, some of them look like they'd been stepped on.
Yeah.
And when we had the SS Monte Carlo, it came out in '83. And the front of that car, the nose was big. Well,
yeah.
They Chattanooga Customs built a Chattanooga Choo Choo El Camino with a SS front end on it.
Right.
And it was littler. We made it work on.
Made that one work too.
One worked, and one didn't.
Yeah. No, that's the way the thing is. You try this, try that.
Yeah.
That's all you can do.
Yep, you got to see, what you can do the best. But I liked, in the evenings going to dinner at the races. I'd go to dinner with Junior, Banjo Matthews, guy from Chevrolet named Walt Sprinkle. Walt was one of their racing reps, and we would go. We were in Richmond one year, and there's a place downtown called the Tobacco Warehouse, big fancy steakhouse. So I go with them three. I drive them down there. I said, I'll be right back. I'll get us a table. So I go down and I tell the lady at the door, I said, I'm here with three very important people for the race. They're here in town. And I told her who it was, and I gave her $20. And I said, can you get us sat down as soon as you can? And she said, yeah, I will. So I go back and we're talking, and Junior said, I thought you were going to get us a table. I said, well, I am. I said, I'll be right back. I went to her again. I gave her another $20. I said, we need to sit, get a table for these guys. And she said, okay. So I went back and fiddled around a little bit, and I said, I'll be right back. I went to her. I said, ma'am, here's my last $20. I said, please get us a table. And she started giggling. I said, "What's so funny?" And I turned around and looked, and Junior was looking at her and giggling. He had went around behind my back and told her, said, "Don't sit us down." So he made me spend all my money
Right.
to get us a seat, and we already had one.
Oh my God.
Stuff like that, it made it just a real fun place to
Yeah,
work.
I bet. I bet. So Chevy, were they paying a lot of? I guess were they? How were they paying Junior? And
Well, he was like Hendrix is now.
yeah,
Junior was in the 80,
right.
83, because Chevrolet came out with that SS Monte Carlo, and Darrell
Yeah,
had been killing them in that Buick. Darrell had a Buick. Bobby Allison had a Buick, and the Buicks were
yeah, I
fast.
remember him. Yeah,
So that's all was up at Junior's when, like factory cars to drive were those Buick T type
yeah,
uh, little Buick Regals. They
right.
were everywhere, and Chevrolet came in. Junior had everybody got the nose pieces from him, all the sheet metal, the windshields, and everything. And it
Yeah,
went on like that for 3-4 years, and then
yeah,
probably 86, Childress and Earnhardt were getting strong, and he was getting a lot. And then in 86, Hendricks came in, but he was just holding on until Bodine won the Martinsville race.
yeah,
In I believe it was 84. And,
right.
he was sort of holding on, but he was a big Chevrolet dealer. And I think some more stuff got to going to Hendricks.
Yeah.
And there's a story about some cylinder heads that come from Juniors that wound up at Hendricks and then back at Juniors. And next thing I knew, I stopped by Juniors one day. I was working somewhere else, and I stopped by there, and the shop where I worked was all the windows were covered in paper.
Oh, is
And
that
they
right?
wouldn't let me in, but then I found out later they were building a Ford. So that
Is
was
that
in
right?
'86. He was building a Ford. Yeah.
That's wild. God. Oh boy. Yeah, you need to tape them windows up. Yeah. Bob Elliott says, "Great job, Jeff." You know
That
Bob Elliott.
I live in the sunny South, and all my neighbors are from New England, and Bob's one of my neighbors. He's a great guy.
No, okay. All right. Good God. How was Darrell to work with?
Darrell. This is what I always said about Darrell. Darrell was you couldn't
He's
beat
not
Darrell.
listening. Don't worry.
You cannot beat Darrell if the car was right. But if the car was right, Darrell was very tough. But
Yeah.
with Earnhardt, Allison, Cale Yarborough, with any of them, you get it close, they're gonna win.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Darrell was good, and he was good to me. He's a generous guy. He's kind. He just wanted everything just so, and sometimes it'd make you want to pull your hair out.
Is that yeah?
1,000 trips to the truck and back to get different springs. Change this, change that.
He's a changing guy. Oh
And
man.
so when Neil Bonnett showed up, Neil was like, we're at Charlotte and we're shorthanded and we're changing the motor. And I felt somebody nudge me, and I turned around and looked, and Neil had taken his driver's suit off and tied his arms around his waist, and he was helping us change the motor. And
Wow.
that's just the
That's
way he was. He was
the way it
he was
was. Yeah.
a good guy. And so, a couple of years later, when my wife and I had our first child, I named him after my dad and after Neil.
Is that right?
And Neil and Susan Bonnett were his godparents, and I've been close to that family ever since.
Wow.
With
Wow.
Kristen and
Yeah.
David, and then of course David's son Justin is driving in that the late model series, like they race at Pensacola and places.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Right.
And carrying on that Bonnett name, and it's going
Yeah.
good.
Boy, that had to be devastating for
Yeah, it
all
was.
they went through.
It was almost surreal, when
Yeah.
when that happened. And that family was always good to me because Neil's birthday is July 30th and my birthday is July 30th. So they always had a party for him at Talladega because we raced in Talladega in July.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so when we go down there, he'd say, Stutts, that was my name. I didn't have a first name. My name
Right.
was Stutts. And they'd say, Stutts, come on to the house. And we got a cake and we're gonna have a birthday party. So
Hey, there you go.
they're just good people.
Yeah. From everything I've seen and heard their interviews and all, they sounded like very good people.
Yeah.
Amazing. Jeez. So you worked there from what 19 up to?
I started going up there and doing odds and ends in '82, and I stayed up there for about 4 years, and then I sort of contracted for pit stops as a jackman for a while, and went to work for Skoal Copenhagen Racing in 1986.
Gotcha.
But even during that time, their junior at Skoal Copenhagen, Benny and Phil Parsons drove, and we didn't run all the races. We didn't run the short track races, and I would go back and jack the 12 car.
Yeah.
And I was at Bristol in a couple of different places with them. So I've always been tied to them, and all the guys that used to work up there, I still keep up with.
Still keep up with them. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
The pit crew and the jack man, the tire guy, man, that's some heavy stuff.
Yeah, and I took Junior's habit. I started out in 1983. The gas man was a truck driver, Henry Benfield, and Henry wrecked an ATV and broke his collarbone. Well, I'm 6'4", so they said, "Can you gas this car?" So I gassed the car maybe for 10 races in the middle of the season, and so when the 12 car got there, I naturally moved over there, and I was their full-time gas man. And about 2 or 3 races in, we did some changing around on the crew, and I wound up the jack man. And I carried the jack maybe 2 races. Then I saw some old VHS tapes of Junior slinging the jack.
Yeah.
And I started, and I liked it. I could sling it and get it around.
Yeah. Now, were they aluminum jacks back then, or steel? Yeah.
It was steel. They were heavy.
That damn thing is heavy.
If it got away from you or somebody was too close to you, you could wipe some stuff out.
Could hurt. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. That's amazing. You know. Let me get this thing off the screen here. Get off of there. Jeez. One of those pop-ups coming up there while we're talking. Yeah. So you wound up 86, and then at 87 you opened up a small fab shop yourself.
Yeah, our first son was born in January '87. So the Atlanta race in '86 for Skoal Copenhagen was my last race as a full-time pit crew guy. Right. So I opened up this shop because my wife worked shifts, and so I could stay at home with our son in the daytime, and then I'd go to work at 4 o'clock and work till 2 or 3 in the morning and come home.
Wow.
Again. And I worked with a guy named Chip Caldwell. He owned a rod shop in Mooresville that sold hot rod parts called Johnny's Rod Shop.
Yeah.
And Neil Bonnett, I would come. He was building a 34 Ford at the time. He would come in there. A lot of racing people came in and out of there, and I was putting in power windows, doing disc brake conversions, things like that. And then I did skin a couple of Daytona Dash cars.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
So I still kept my hand in it, and did that. And then about a year or 2 later, I went to work for my crew chief from Skoal Copenhagen. His name was Marv Acton. Marv's a great fabricator. Marv's about 75 years old, and I think half of the pontoons on Lake Norman are floating on his welding.
Is that right?
He's
good welder.
He's a very good fabricator and welder, and he'll take on about any job. But he's 75, I believe. He's still working.
Is that right? Well,
he's still got his fab shop. It's action engineering, and he's still going.
Is that right?
Yeah, but I did that, and then our second son was born, and I tell everybody that's when the fun stopped. It wasn't me; it was them. So I had to quit and get
Yeah.
a real job.
Real job.
So I went to
Heard
work for a Japanese electric motor manufacturer for the car industry.
Oh, yeah.
Stayed with them 22 years.
Good.
Moved up from the floor to the office, and I took my police work skills, and they made a human resource person out of me. So I've been a human resource manager for the last probably 16 years.
Yeah. Maybe I come down and get a job.
You come down, I'll hire you tomorrow.
This is after you look at my stuff, you wouldn't hire me tomorrow. Oh, God. So that's what you're doing, and you also have in your spare time working on this Camaro and 67 Camaro.
Lord, I had that thing it's a long story, but I bought it from the original owner in 75, fixed it up and showed it at different things. Actually got pictures of it in a national magazine one time.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
And so when I went to work at Junior's, I drove it for about a year and I parked it, and then my sons were born, and that was in 1987, and I parked it, and it didn't see daylight till about 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So now I'm redoing it for the last time this
last time. Are your sons into cars?
They taught. I was always into lowering them and getting them right, looking at this and that. And we live out in the country, and they're country boys, and they went to a country high school, and I've learned how to jack them up.
Yeah.
They got 4-wheel drive jacked up, but they like hot rods too.
They're into that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's everybody to his own. That's the way it is.
That's right. I'm a Chevrolet guy, but I like all kind of cars.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I didn't know you at Barrett Jackson, but I looked at your car 2 or 3 times. I told you, I looked at that car and I said, that looks like something Marco went on.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah, I forgot to bring that up as we got to talking, we discovered that Jeff knew people that I knew, and he knows back and forth. So small world it is. He knew Marco down in Indian Head, I believe that's where it is. Indian Head. Yeah. And you actually came up here with Marco and went out. Look at the cars. Look at the shops.
Yep, we did a hot rod field trip. All my car buddies here from States, we did a hot rod field trip one December, and we went to Denton, Maryland, to the hot rod garage that Ray Bartlett owns. Went to a bunch of places in Baltimore. Went to Market. We were all over the place.
All over there. Oh, there's a lot around here, believe me.
Yeah, it was amazing to me that there was the car scene was as big as it is up there.
Well, a lot of them are just stuck back in areas that nobody looks at,
Yeah,
and,
we saw two collections. Both of them had 20 plus cars, and then a couple more guys had 5, 10 cars here or there, and they're everywhere.
See that the company that restored the '69 Mustang that we auctioned off. That company was in Cambridge, Maryland.
Yeah,
which is all in that area.
There's a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent.
Yeah. Well, it's a 40-some thousand square foot facility that's fabricating and painting and anything you need done.
Man.
And they actually did the car, but the owner that he put a lot of money into it. It was amazing, But they did a good job. I mean, that car is exactly the way it was. And I used to go down there twice a week while they were restoring it. And we did it in like 4 months, 5 months. And, oh, my gosh. Yeah. Some days they were happy to see me. Some days they weren't happy to see me. Especially when you say, you got that all wrong over here. But
that's the toughest build is building for a builder himself.
Yeah, exactly. When you know how it's supposed to be, and then they're sort of not doing it that way, and it really gets into no, they really they get upset, but there's nothing you can do about it. They
That's
have to
it.
correct it. That's all. So crazy. Well, Jeff, it's been great having you on here. It's interesting stories that we all like to hear. We're all car crazy, so it's been fantastic. We went a little bit longer than I thought we would, but that's good too.
Yeah.
So anyway, we thank you for being on here. We appreciate your time, and we meet up somewhere, I'm sure.
I certainly hope. We'll do another Maryland trip, and I'll hunt you down.
I'm trying. Well, here I'm trying to. I'm not going to say what it is. I'm trying to work a deal down there in Charlotte, uh, or near Charlotte, Mooresville, on a deal.
You
So
you call me. You can tour the glass plant, and I'll take you to lunch.
there you go. We can do that. So yeah, it's going to be fun, really. And if this deal works out, we'll definitely be that way. So
Good.
all right. So anyway, we thank you a lot for being on,
Thank you,
and
Sam. I enjoyed it very much. Thank
I hope you did. We certainly had fun time at it. So thank you very much, buddy.
you.
We'll
All right.
talk to you later on.
All right. Take
All
care.
right. You too. All right, everyone. We just got through with Jeff Stutts, who has really got some interesting stories for everyone. And I don't want to forget, let's thank the shirt gallery for our shirts, Sam Loxer Jr. shirts. And we shall catch up with you at the next show. So we thank you very much and have a great evening. And as we end the show here, thank you very much for everyone.